Hi, my name is Frank Schaefer, a one-time religious rights activist in the 1970s and 80s with my evangelist, Father Francis Schaefer, and now I guess you would describe me as a liberal activist. Doing my bit in the resistance to the worst president this United States has ever elected in my lifetime, certainly. That includes Richard Nixon, and that is Donald Trump. But, you know, as we talk about impeachment and hearings and Russia and Putin and corruption and the nepotism of his family and Breitbart.com and all these other people, let's not lose track of something. The only reason Donald Trump is president is because we had a black president, and the resentment of the white oligarchy and the racist and the xenophobic white evangelicals who designed an entire Christian school movement in the 70s and 80s to try to end-run integration. These people who followed people like the segregationist Jerry Falwell Sr., whose son now runs Liberty University, are reacting to the first black presidency. And their reaction was to elect the most unqualified president to replace perhaps the best president this country's had in my lifetime, the most erudite, the most educated, the most well-spoken, the best temperament we've had in a president that I can remember, a true leader. And it's almost like a parody of something like Paradise Lost or Satan's Fall from Heaven, whatever it might be. The reaction against this wonderful figure of President Obama, who endured an 8-year slow-motion lynching by the white mob, the oligarchs, the alt-right, the white supremacists, and all the rest of it. It's almost like a parody. You know, I don't even think Shakespeare would have cooked up something like this, to go from someone so luminous and so bright and so well qualified, but also just so deeply human, the good husband of a wife, a faithful father, someone who is there for his family. And instead we get this adulterous swine, this philanderer, this molester of woman, this person with criminal impulses who lies his way through life, this con man, this multiple bankrupt, this person who's opened this whole Pandora's box of a relationship with our sworn enemy in Russia, and the murderer, the mass murderer, and the assassin and killer Vladimir Putin, who kills his opponents, who jails them, who beats them. To go from Barack Obama to Trump is really mind-boggling, but it's only explicable by the depth of the racism. The magnifying glass that Trump's election puts on our country goes to show that, yes, indeed, 40% or so of the American public are uneducated, racist fools who occupy this white underclass that, by the way, is where all the so-called real welfare mothers live. White older males my age are the people who are essentially out there sucking up dollars from the federal system, from Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and unemployment benefits and disability, huge amounts of white males on disability, in comparison to the productive black community that the whites like to disparage, who are forging ahead economically, and that in spite of the mass incarceration of the new Jim Crow, where male black men have been locked up on the dubious pretext of minor drug charges by the millions to try to control that population out of black ascendancy into our culture. And so I just want to point out, you know, as we struggle, as we resist, let's remember the truth of the matter. The entire fiasco of Trump is made possible by the resentment of white fools, from the billionaire oligarchs and people like Jeff Sessions and Mike Pence, all the way down to the know-nothing twits flying Confederate flags on the back of their stupid pickup trucks, roaring up and down highways. This entire stupid movement, this fart in the wind, which will blow away and be replaced by a multicultural, decent, fair society that will look at this moment with mind-boggling propensity, saying, what on earth was this about? Just remember this. It is the reaction to a first black president. And otherwise, none of this is explicable, especially the fact that the Republican Party continues to go along with this mentally unstable, unfit fool. Can only be explained by the continuing reaction and obstruction that they cannot get out of the habit of. They're still obstructing the Obama presidency, even though Obama is no longer president. Go figure. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaefer.
In April of 1867, the Invisible Empire holds a secret meeting in Nashville, calling together all of the different Klan dens from throughout the state. Their goal is to galvanize the individual dens into a single deadly army. The first campaign? Disrupt the upcoming national and local elections in 1868. Leading the insurgent army is new Grand Wizard and Confederate war hero Nathan Bedford Forrest.
When the Civil War begins, Nathan Bedford Forrest joins the rebel cause and earns a reputation as being a very fearsome cavalry raider. During the war, he was an outstanding tactician, and he led some very successful raids that disrupted Union supply lines and communications centers.
Forrest had earned notoriety for his role in the Fort Pillow Massacre of 1864. After defeating Union forces at Fort Pillow in West Tennessee, Forrest soldiers began ruthlessly executing black prisoners of war. With his taste for blood and his hatred of blacks, Forrest seems to be the perfect man to lead the Klan. With Forrest's help, the Klan quickly spreads throughout the entire South.
The Klan became sort of a paramilitary arm of the Democratic Party, which of course was supported by the former Confederates.
An observer for a New York newspaper writes of Klan activity in Georgia.
There are parties of rebels now going about through the state murdering loyal citizens in their houses at night and shooting them from bushes during the day.
In South Carolina, an agent for the National Republican Party reports,
"It is not safe for me to go alone, unarmed, into the upcountry here. Negroes are daily shot dead. I fear that thousands of voters will be kept away or driven from the polls."
This fear becomes a reality. In 1868, voter registration rolls show that there are over 100,000 more black voters than white voters in the South. But violence against blacks wipes out this numeric advantage. While Republican Ulysses S. Grant wins the presidency, many Democrats win back local and state offices. White violence is making an impact.
Southerners generally were in favor of the Ku Klux Klan because they were providing some stability. They were providing a sense of law and order. In this chaos, in this pandemonium that has been let loose in the South.
In Tennessee, it is believed that Southern white supremacists murder an average of one person a day leading up to the elections of 1868.
My name is Floyd Rose. I live at, I get my meal at 619 North Lee Street, here in Melbourne. I read the ordinance concerning the renaming of streets and the closing of alleys, etc. In keeping with what I read, we got more than 60% of the residents on Forest Street to sign a petition, and I'm presenting that to you tonight.
All right. The way that works is you'll hand that petition to our engineering department. That's where the process starts. Pat Collins right there.
Give it to who?
And he will initiate that, and we will proceed according to the way we've always done since.
Well, wait a minute. Let me know what we need to do. If that's not sufficient, I need to know.
Mr. Rose, are you the contact if we have questions once we open the petitions? Are you the contact if we have some questions?
Contact you?
Oh, no, sorry. Who is your contact person?
We contact you.
If we have a question, once we look at the petitions, though, can we contact you for any questions?
So you're going to contact me when?
If we have questions. If we have any questions, when the engineering department looks at those petitions, if we have any questions, are you our contact? Who I contact?
I just want to know what we need to do.
Right now, nothing. You tell me what you're supposed to do.
We have to advertise this for 90 days, and just like we do all other streets. I noticed you made a statement, but we didn't always do that. We had one street nobody lived on, so it didn't involve notifying anybody or changing the address or anything. That was Rick Council's street, so there was no use in.
I don't argue with you about that. I don't agree. I don't argue about it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said I don't agree that you've always done that, like you
Oh,
said.
I understand that.
Okay.
That's the situation.
Sure.
All right, we will take it from here.
I'm John Robinson, 27 St. Green Circle, Lake Park, and also Associate Pastor of First Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, 517 North Oak Street, here to present a letter to Mayor John Gale and the council members from our pastor and our congregation. This letter reads to Mayor John Gale and the Valdosta City Council. On August 22nd, 2018, the congregation of the First Antioch Missionary Baptist Church voted to lend its support to the efforts to initiate by the People's Tribune to rename Forest Street Barack Obama's Boulevard. This letter is a stand as the church's endorsement and the renaming of the Forest Street to Barack Obama Boulevard. I would like to say this is to the merits of the president that we are formally talking about, Barack Obama. We do and we do believe that he deserves to have a name, a street named after him in this city. And we know the history of the city. We know the history that it have a dark shadow over Lowndes County and the city as far as race relations. And we do believe that it would be appropriate for a street to be named after Barack Obama. And I'd like to present this letter to the mayor.
Just add it to that stack of pass.
All right, thanks very much, and please take into consideration what we asked.
George Buster, manufacturer, 04 Oak Drive, Alabama, Georgia. The history of any city is very important. This is an article from the Lake Mark Post, January 3, 2005. And the headline read, this particular article, the whole article is good because it lets you know what we had to go through just to get Bible Park renamed. 15 of us were arrested, and I was one of the 15. But in the left-hand corner, it said Ryan's lambasts the time for its poor coverage of what was going on trying to get the park renamed. I said that the Valdosta Daily Times published lies, misinformation, and they ignored the facts in the case, especially when they contend, I'm talking about the Valdosta Daily Times contend, and kept publishing that the Bible Park land was donated by the family, and it was not. And they knew that, but they kept putting it in the paper. So I said that for a reason. When I came back from Omaha, Nebraska, I heard all the negative about Reverend Rose. And I'm asking that, I know you all don't have control of that paper, but it seems to me that the editor fuels the race problem in this community when you keep saying things that either, it just generates hostilities. For instance, they're saying that in 1800s, Forest Park is perhaps named after a black person, former slave. In the 1800s, I believe it would be harder for a fleet to download an elephant on his hard drive because it's almost impossible. They wouldn't do that. If a street was going to name in 1800 for a black person, it would be named Boyd. And so my thing is time now. But let Valdosta move forward, y'all. Let's not play these games. Now, we know what we had to go through just to get this park renamed. And so I'm asking the Valdosta Daily Times and the good people of this community, let's not do that. Black folk have lived with Lee Street, and if you go anywhere in Georgia, you will find a Forest Street. And it's in their history. I talked to the historian. I told them, I've done the research. Some of these cities, they know that street is named after Mr. Forrest. You see that Valdosta don't know. Go anywhere in the South and you'll find that these streets are named after Confederate soldiers, and some of them just murdered black folk outright. And there's nothing wrong with having one street named after the first black president. We got one street named after Martin Luther King. It's only 7 blocks long, and I believe Valdosta got the shortest street in the history of the United States of America. Peace be unto you. Thank you for your time.
My name is Paul Ransom, 117 Sunnymead Drive here in Valdosta, Georgia. Retired military, veteran of the Korea and the Vietnam conflict. Retired vocational instructor from the California Department of Corrections, starting at San Quentin and working at 5 other institutions. I'm here in support of renaming Forest Street to Barack Obama Boulevard. Now, the reason for Forrest, Nathan Forrest was often described as a born military genius. His rule of action, get there first with the most men. It became one of the most quoted statements of the war. His command was responsible for the massacre of African American Union troops stationed at Fort Pillow in Tennessee. And he served as the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan in the early years of Reconstruction. During the Battle of Fort Pillow in Tennessee, Forrest ordered the slaughter of between 277 and 295 African American Union soldiers who were attempting to surrender. The source for this information, www.briography/nation-veteran-forest. In recent decades, forests have come to rival the less controversial Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson as the foremost human symbol of Confederate identity. Consequently, debates have emerged wherever forests have been commemorated. Schools, streets, and buildings named in the general honor have been renamed. The Nation-Veteran Forest Park in Memphis, the location of the general's grave and the largest equestrian statue of him, has been the focus of the KKK and civil rights demonstration. Now I'm asking in the name of good common decency for you to rename Forest Street, which is predominantly African American, which is named for Nathan Bedford Forrest, the Grand Wizard of the Klan, a mass murder of African Americans. Rename that street for Rockwell Bunker Boulevard, our first African American president, the savior of General Motors and the Chrysler Corporation, a man of integrity who...
Sorry, 3 minutes.
My name is Linda Battle, and I'm speaking to the council and the mayor. I think President Barack Obama was a good president, and I did vote for him. But I think it's irrelevant for us to name a street after him in Valdosta because he doesn't have any significant ties to Valdosta. Just to name a street after someone because of their race, that is being racial. I think there are more important fish to fry in Valdosta than thinking about renaming the street. We should be concerned more about the judicial system here and the criminal system here. But naming a street after somebody, that's just a controversy we don't need in Valdosta. I think this is a stirring up unnecessary controversy.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else that would like to speak? Is anybody else?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Walker. I live at 4061 Pond Road. I grew up here by Austin. Our first house when I came down here, my daddy's Gone Walker. He owned Gone Walker Park when we lived at 801 4th Street. At that time, I'm in the local Sons of Confederate Veterans here by Austin. I'm not saying, I'm not against changing it to Mr. Obama. That's fine. But what I have a problem with is what one of the last gentlemen said about Nathan Bedford Forrest. He mentioned Fort Pillow about the massacre there. They was a massacre, black and white. They killed everybody. When the governor of Tennessee was getting complaints from that area about what was going on, he asked Forrest to go over there. Forrest usually traveled with about 2,000 men. The governor of Tennessee gave him extra 10,000 men. They attacked Fort Pillow for about an hour, and they killed a few people. They under a truce flag. And the commander of the fort decided not to surrender. He said, give me 2 hours, and they was going to wait for reinforcements. Forrest gave him 20 minutes. He said he wasn't going to give him no fort. So they stormed the fort, and blacks and whites, they was all massacred. So, and then the other problem with it is, they're saying Nathan Bedford Forrest was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. He has no proof of it. He cannot show you no proof. And if he does, I'd like to see it. And other than that, one of the other gentlemen said the pastor at First Antioch Church. So I guess they're just going to throw Mr. Reverend Elbert Forrest under the bus for founding that church over there. And it seems like to me that they want to have their local history of the congregation of people here. And I would like to see them claim Forest Street. But there's no records, they can't find no records here that it was named after Forrest. Now, on the pages of y'all's minutes, when they're naming that street, Elbert Forrest's name is on both of them pages. the signatures, you know, use the force as a plan and not even mention the other reverend force. I kind of see a problem about how they went about doing it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, anyone else?
I'm Dwayne Johnson, a local business owner, 4029 Sandy Run, Valdosta, Georgia. Didn't plan on preparing to speak or anything, but I definitely just wanted to lend an opinion regarding the street renaming. Coming from an education background, I'm definitely heavy of a proponent of getting the details right. And the way I see it is that, just to throw my opinion in there from a scholarly standpoint, is that if there's data that backs up where the street name comes from, then we need to go with that. If there's data that backs up that was named for a certain person, we need to go with that. I personally, have been keeping up with it, and I haven't, found any research that supports any rhetoric or narrative that it was named after Nathan Bedford Forrest. If that's the indication that can be supported, then there's a challenge for that. But if there is documentation within the history, as gentlemen just spoke, and that has been published in a sense, that it was named perhaps after Elder Forrest, then why aren't we pursuing that as a glorification of the great works that man did back in that day, being a business owner from the African American community? I feel like we are, in a sense, cutting our legs away from us if we are here to support, for that instance, an African American business owner that perhaps could be magnified towards the community. If we have documentation that sits in that area, then we need to support that documentation. Otherwise, we're fanning flames, in my opinion, when it comes to a very sensitive nature, especially someone's name when it comes to perhaps Nathan Bedford Forrest. There's a lot of energy that comes behind it. It's very polarizing, and we just need to be careful, especially in times of where we need to be pointing in the right direction when it comes to unifying the community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, in that case, Mark, you want to give us a report? All right.
I'll be very brief there. I just want to let everybody know that the Valdosta Youth Council is still accepting applications.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
I don't think any of us can be satisfied in the United States until that war is brought to an honorable end and American soldiers are brought back here to the United States of America.
One day, we will have to stand before the God of history. And we will talk in terms of things we've done. And it seems that I can hear the God of history saying, that was not enough. But I was hungry, and ye fed me not.
This is coming from the community property owners of the south side of Valdosta. Citizens to be heard from our regular meeting. The concerns of the city community citizens are as follows: directing commercial truck traffic through the neighborhoods, demolition of old buildings that may cause danger, especially during hazardous weather, water drainage issue, restoring small businesses, marketplaces, physician offices, pharmacies, restaurants, banks, auto service stations, create public transportation for the city of Valdosta, upgrade dilapidated housing and L streets, build hotels near routes for visitors to the recreation park while adventure, including billboard advertising. Restore historic Dasher High School that was established in 1929, located at 900 South Troop Street under the Valdosta City School System. The school name changed to Lomax Junior High School in honor of the first principal, Professor Lomax. This building is currently utilized by Coastal Plains Area Economic Opportunity Authority. Upgrade recreational centers for youth and create senior citizen recreation on the south side of Valdosta. The property owners with diverse opinions have all agreed to alleviate traffic conjunction in the downtown area of Valdosta. All commercial trucks be routed using the already in place interperimeter highway to intersect state I-75, exit 6, 11, 16, 22, also Copeland Road, south of exit 11 at I-75. Hill Avenue, crossing Georgia Highway 94, which is Griffin Avenue, to intersect with I-75 South, using exit number 11, Intercity Street, Madison Highway, for commercial distribution, and exit 11 by Copeland Road and St. Augustine Road, by Georgia Highway west of Hill Avenue.
Ma'am, what was your name?
Hazel Gibbs.
All right. I'm gonna ask you to give us that list.
Yes, I have given it to you.
There's a lot of them that are being addressed already.
All right.
Pat, would you take that, and we will get back to you. All right, Vanessa, you got it? Okay. And we will get back to you and inform you as to what the status of a lot of those things are, because a lot of them are already being addressed.
All right, thank you.
All right, is there any other citizens to be heard?
I have two reasons for coming up here, Mayor Kay.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of Mr. Baker, but I did have an article that I read that was quite interesting. It was my assumption we had lost a great deal of good doctors from the hospital. I was under the impression all these years that 3 members were selected from the city council to serve on the hospital authority, and 3 members were selected from the county. I'm in error. In 1992, according to Mr. Baker, it was changed, and there was a court order. And the hospital now sends 3 names down to you, and you select the person that's going to serve on the hospital authority. I suggest that we rescind that order. We're losing a lot of doctors. The hospital is now hiring its own doctors, and when you go to the hospital, you can no longer see your private physician cannot go to see you, and you're attended to by the doctors from the hospital. So I would assume that if the city council and the county commission selected the people that served on the hospital authority, we might have a better service. Thank you.
Well, Vivian, I will tell you this, Vivian, I have advocated for that since I've been mayor. I have advocated for that process to change. It has to be done through the legislature.
Well, I suggest that we do.
But it also has to be, the county and the city has to be on the same page.
Well, I'd be glad to go before the county.
Well, you ought to do that. All right, anybody else? Any other council comments?
All I got to say, sir, is that I'm grateful that the citizens came out to the millage classes and et cetera meetings. I'm so grateful that you came out to get an understanding. And from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you for coming out. I really want you to keep coming. Come to the city council meetings. Learn all what you can to help us make a difference in the city of Valdosta.
I'd like to address this issue about Florida Street. When I take into consideration whenever if this comes up, I'm going to look at the merits of the petition and what residents on that street said, who is named after now, whether it's Forest or Edward, don't make no difference to me. I'm not going to make a decision based on that. I'm going to do it based on the petition and the citizens, what they have to say they live on. That plays a lot with me. Not who, it don't matter to me who it's named for. I'm gonna look at it. I certainly think that President Obama did an outstanding, honorable, upbeat president that I was very proud of. Who is named after right now, whether it's Mr. Edwards or Mr. Parker, don't make no difference to me.